everyone, and welcome to another episode of Python 3 Crash Course. I'm Nick from Coffee Before Arch, and today we're going to be going over lists in Python. So, what is a list? So, this has come up when we talked about argv and getting command line inputs, and we saw that we had to unpack argv based on the number of inputs we'd have. So, if we had one input, we would have two things kind of lumped together in argv, which would be the program name and then our single input. So two different things. If we had three inputs, we would have a list of four different things, being the program name, followed by our three inputs, all separated by commas in that square bracket like value. So, when we're talking about data representation, a lot of times we don't want to have 100 different variables that have 100 different things if they're all really clustered together and are part of one specific thing. So let's say we had a grocery list. We wouldn't want to have 100 different variables for 100 different items. It'd be nice if we had exactly that, a list of one thing called a grocery list that have 100 different things in it. So let's go ahead and open our example for today, which will be basiclists.py. So the way we declare a list is just like any other variable, except we set it equal to these square brackets. And this says I want a list of things. Now, what can go in the list? Well, a list can take any different any data type that we want. So in this case, we can give it a string. And so when we call from example list, we can call append, which is part of the list data type, which is a class. We can call this method append, which will put whatever we give it at the end of the list. So here the list is empty, so after we call this append on hello, we'll have a single string in our list. We can also give it an integer, so we'll just append 1. So now our list will have hello and then a comma and then a 1, and then we'll append a Boolean value true, and then our list will contain, when we print it out, it'll show hello, then a comma, then 1, then a comma, and then true. And so we'll go ahead and print that out here. Now, how do we get the values that are inside of a list? So we do this through indexing, and we do that with these square brackets. So we have example list, then we do these square brackets, and then we say which item in the list we want. So in this case, we can index the first item of the list. Indexing in Python starts at 0, so the 0th item that's in position 0 will be that hello string, and then at position 1 we'll print out that 1 that was there, and then in position 2 we'll have that Boolean value true, so we'll print those out. Now, if we can put things into a list, it makes sense that we can take things out of a list. So in this case, when we call clear on our list, so example list.clear, we empty our list completely. So we get rid of everything in there. It's just empty at that point. So when we do, we'll go ahead and print out the length of the list. When we call this length, this built-in function length in Python, if we call it on a string, it will give us the number of characters in the string. If we call it on a list, it will give us the number of elements in the list. So if we called length on our list before we called clear, it would say 3. And then right here, after clear, it will say 0. There'll be 0 elements in our list. So we'll go ahead and make a new list, this time of only integers. A lot of times when we have a list, it doesn't have to be, but a lot of times we'll make lists of one data type. So maybe it'll all be strings that relate to something, or maybe it'll all be numbers that relate to something else that we're plotting maybe. So we'll go ahead and throw some random numbers in here, 4, 2, 21, etc. And we'll see that lists also have another nice mechanism, which is this sort mechanism. So when we call sort on here, for a data type like int, it will sort it based upon its numeric value. So it'll go in ascending order. So in this case, it will. We don't have to assign it to anything. So what sort does is it sorts it in place, which means that example list at this point, after we call sort, will be a sorted list. So it should go 2, 4, 5, 19, 21, 45, and so we'll print that out. And then we see we also have another nice thing. Sometimes we want to flip everything around in a list. So we can call this reverse method, and it does the same thing. It does reversing, but in place. So this time it'll reverse in place. So we'll take our sorted list that will now be ascending in that order, and then we'll flip it around. So it'll be 45, 21, 19, 5, 4, 2. So, you may be wondering, well, do I have to get rid of everything in the list when I want to get something? Well, the answer is, of course, no. You don't have to get rid of everything. You can get rid of a single thing. So we can get rid of the last element of the list using this pop method. So we do that. It'll remove the last element of a list. We can also insert into an arbitrary point in the list. So, previously we had just put in everything at the end of the list. So it would find automatically the end of the list and then put our new value when we did that append. Now we can put it at whatever index we want. So in this case, we'll put the value 10 into the first, third, and fifth index, and we'll print out that new list. So the arguments for insert are be 1, the position of the list, and then the second one will be what we want to append in there. Now, there's plenty of other methods inside of that we can use with lists. Another one is count. So this is very convenient if we say, maybe there's a certain value in there. We want to check how many times that has occurred. So if we do count, we'll give count when we call this method a value, and that value will be checked by that method will check how many times that specific a value occurs in the list. So in this case, we put in 3 10s when we did inserts up here, and we call count on 10, so it should return 3. There are 3 10s in the list. So then we can also remove specific items from the list. So we already showed that we can remove everything. We can remove the last element in a list. We can also remove a specific index in the list. Or rather, we can remove a specific value from the list. I shouldn't say index. So what we can do is first we can print out where the index of a specific value is. So when we call index on 10, for example list, this will find the first occurrence of 10. So here the first occurrence occurs at index 1 where we inserted. So we'll go ahead and print out, this should say removing 10 from position, and then this should be 1. And then we can remove, when we call remove, that will remove the first instance of that value. Otherwise, it'll throw an error if that value doesn't exist. So this will remove 10, that first 10 from the list. Then we'll go ahead and look for the next 10. Now remember, this gets a little bit tricky here as far as the numbers that we'll print, but that's because when we remove an element out of the list, all the indices moving forward past that element will be decreased by 1. It'll be shifted over because we got rid of something, say, in the middle. So but we can just remove the next value of 10, and we know there's 3, so we'll remove all 3 of them. So that will go ahead and do it for example. Let's go ahead and run it. So we'll call Python3 on basiclist.py and see what happens. So our first list, we'll go ahead and just print out the list as is, and it has 3 values in it. So it has hello, 1, and true. The size of the list is 3. Then we can print out individual values of the list or access those individual values using those square brackets and then the index. So the index 0 will be hello, index 1 is the integer 1, and index 2 is this boolean true. After we call clear, the new size of the list is 0. Then when we fill it with a bunch of numbers and then we call sort, it will sort this array or this list of integers into ascending order. Then when we call reverse on it, it will basically reverse the entire list. So instead of being 2, 4, 5, 19, 21, 45, it becomes 45, 21, 19, 5, 4, 2. We can, when we do pop on the list, it will remove the last element, which is 2 in this case. So it gets rid of that. Now we can insert into specific places. Remember, we inserted a 10 at index 1, 3, and 5. So here's index 0, here's index 1, here's index 3, here's index 5. Then we'll go ahead and remove the 3 10s from the list. So this count tells us how many times, when we call count on list, that gives us how many times the value 10 was in the list, which is 3. Then we'll go ahead and remove them. So we'll use the we'll go ahead and look up. So with the index method, we'll look up where the first value of 10 is in the list. So that's at position 1, which you can see here. And then we'll go ahead and print that out, and we'll print it out after we remove it. So here's index 1 now. We see that index 1 is no longer 10. It's all been shifted over left by 1. So then we'll look for the second one, which it says is in position 2. Now remember, because we got rid of this, the new indexing is going to become 0, 1, 2. So the next 10 is at index 2. We'll get rid of that as well. Now for the final one, it's at position 3. So remember, we've gotten rid of the first two 10s. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, or sorry, 0, 1, 2, 3. So that's the last one in the list. Remember, these two 10s we got rid of. Those two 10s we already got rid of when we removed those elements in the previous two steps. And then we'll print out after that. So we got rid of all of the 10 elements in that list. So that's going to do it for the basics of lists today. As always, if we go to github.com/coffeebeforearch and we go to Python Crash Course, we've got links to all the previous videos and then the files associated with those videos. Now today, we went ahead and we were looking at lists and basic lists.py. So here's the example for today. Go ahead and download this if you feel like, play around with it. Let me know what you think. Go ahead if you have any suggestions or videos that you specifically want. Inside of the README of Python3 Crash Course, there's my email. Feel free to comment on YouTube as well if there's any questions. And as always, I'm Nick from Coffee Before Arch, and I hope you have a nice day.